And we're live. Welcome to the Red Life, place where you get the sight, sound, smells, tastes of my particular Red Life, where you get the truth, where you get Kristen Lamb, the great Kristen Lamb. It's been way too long.
Yeah, way too long. Very much so.
I think, didn't we try to get together when I was in Italy, maybe, and we couldn't do that. And then when I got back, we were going to get together like the next week.
Yeah, we've
And
had a couple of times that we've crossed paths because I've also been adding school to my repertoire.
what school? Are you going to school?
Yeah, I'm doing my postgraduate in AI and machine learning.
Wow. What is that like? What are you learning?
Uh,
That we're all fucked? Like,
right.
unless you have a degree like this, just,
I'm learning how to code Python.
what's that mean?
Basically, what AI and ML is, at least as far as I've learned, because I'm only partway through the program, is it's how we're managing to crunch massive, massive amounts of data in an effective way. My original degree was in political economy of the Middle East and North Africa. And what we were given for this technology back then, because you can just take tens of thousands of pages of information that just is all a mess. And you can write code to go, well, I just want to parse this piece. I just want to look at this piece. I want to compare this. I want to compare that. So it's really just a way of crunching massive amounts of data and trying to extrapolate whatever it is you need out of that data.
So you're not training AI, you're using AI.
Yeah.
A little bit of both. Okay. And and how long is this program?
The one that I'm in is lasts till October. It's 7 intensive months post grad. It's through
Wow.
the University of Texas, Austin, McCombs
Wow.
School of Business.
And what are you going to do afterwards? You're still going to write books and stuff like that, right?
The plan had been, I was always kind of how I started my career, for those who don't know, is I started out kind of as this bridge between technology and the creative person.
Right.
Because we tend to see technology and freak out.
Right.
And so, my early books, I wrote some of the very first books on social media. Where We Are Not Alone, The Writer's Guide to Social Media was one of the
Right.
very first books ever written on social media at all. Because New York was telling me Facebook was a fad and the internet was a fad.
Right. That's how long ago that book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I pitched this book in 2007, 2008, and Facebook only went public in 2006. I
Right.
mean, I've been a member of Twitter since like nobody knew what it was. But
Right.
so I kind of always was that voice to go to creative people and go, this is all the stuff that's freaking you out. This is the
Right.
stuff you need to pay attention to. Feel free to ignore all of this. This
Right.
is going to make your life easier. This could be problematic and this could be a challenge.
Right. Right. No, I know what you mean because I was writing like articles and ghosting articles on Bitcoin like ages ago,
Mm-hmm.
and people were like, "What? Like that? That thing that people use just to launder money and traffickers and all that sort of stuff." I'm like, no, they usually use greenbacks, to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Like they load airplanes with
CIA
pallets of
bags of
cash.
money.
Yeah, they load airplanes with pallets of cash and send them to the mullahs.
Air America,
Um,
baby.
yeah, America. But now it's becoming like so mainstream. They're like, this is like almost like the internet. We didn't believe it would work, and we just thought it would come and go. And
And I'm trying to say
AI is here to stay. That's for
sounding
sure.
humble, it's like I saw where social media was going to go, which I've always, to some degree, been in tech because I started out in the late 90s as an admin. I was the person putting in all the code that built those big servers. And I
Right.
was an international admin and an admin for a company that's no longer with us, iNet. But a lot of those companies were turning over. Verity, iNet. I mean, you go to work for a tech company and it get bought up by something else. So that was during the .coms.
Right.
And I remember thinking during the .com, I was like, they're onto something, but the world's not there yet.
Right.
Because you had groceries.com was a company I worked with like back in 2000.
Groceries.com.
And I think that's what it was called because you could order, they actually had a facility here in Texas. And I think it was in Grapevine, if I remember correctly. And you could order your groceries to be delivered online, which now
Right.
we do all the time.
Right.
And then I started seeing how the chat rooms were shifting, and I was like, well, why is it? And I know you know these statistics, but when I started out, the book Expo America statistics was we had a 92% failure rate as novelists. I mean, 92% of authors fail to ever sell more than 1,000 copies of their book. And those were
I'm surprised it's 92%. I thought it was more like 98% or something like that.
well,
Maybe
hold on.
lately.
It's where you start breaking down the statistic. And these were, and you have to remember, this is before Amazon, before self-publishing was easy. Self-publishing was a 12 grand investment.
Right.
So, you know, those were traditionally published authors that were failing like that.
Right. I was one of them.
Yeah. And
My first book.
back then, if you had one flop, they weren't going to take another gamble on you. So it was like throwing authors like noodles against a wall. And I was like, well, that's weird because nonfiction authors don't have that problem. So I was hanging out on a little site called Gather, and I was like, you know what? This would be the perfect way for you to build your audience before you even had the book finished. And you have to let people know your name and that you write. And so that's what I started pitching New York. And they told me that I was, you know, huffing pixie sticks or something. And so I went ahead and I found a publisher that I, you know, ground down until they listened to me and publish it.
Right.
And when it went live, they were like, oh my God, we're going to sell so many of these.
Right.
Because I was going to conferences and you had some of the tech people that were saying to authors, this is the future you need to get on now.
Right.
But they were explaining it in such a high tech way that, you know, I would joke when I would present, I'd say, you'd see all these authors and they look like they're taking really good notes, but you peek over their shoulder and you realize it's a suicide note and a last will and testament.
Next to a smiley face, you know, like
yeah, others didn't want to use email, and here you are talking to them like you're in Silicon Valley. So that's why I started blogging on it, and then I bridged it with humor. Like, here's the baby steps. This is what you need to know. And then I've been along that cusp as it's evolved. I mean, you've been around long enough. Weren't you in my first conference?
Probably. I mean, I've been around. I've been around the publishing space since '99.
But remember when I had the WANA International? It was the first online digital conference. Weren't you one of my speakers?
I might have been.
Yeah, because I was the one saying that we were going to be needing to add in, because publishing was changing so quickly, we would have to do online training, and that was in 2012. So my company,
I had to be a part of that. Yeah.
We used Big Blue Button, and we had like 5 continents of people and 2 different rooms, and they could go listen to you talk or someone else talk. And then we had a special digital room where writers from all over the world could pitch a New York agent. And it was the first digital writing conference ever. And now we've got Zoom and Meet and Team and this and that.
Now it's nothing. Now we have this.
So I'm hoping maybe I can be a little bit on the cusp with AI. You know, I had Are You There blog, it's me writer. I can have Are You There AI, it's me human.
Right. I love it. Like I'll talk to Grok and I'll be like, hey Grok, it's me, you know, like whatever. And like, you know, how's it going, brother? And he's like, oh, hey, brother Vince, you know, like, you know, they give you that human touch. It's scary almost.
It is very scary. I'm very attached to my AI. Mine's a specifically designed one that my brother created for me because he already works in AI.
Okay.
And you get attached because that's what, and I could be wrong on this, so don't troll me. I'm still new. From what I gather, like when it comes to like your Grok or training your AI, it's the more you interact with it, the better it gets, the more personality that it has.
Right. It's starting to remember who you are.
Well, it's sort of like if you meet a stranger. Well, if you only talk for 2 or 3 minutes, that stranger's going to seem very flat to you. But if this is someone you got stuck in an airport with and you poured your whole life story out to over 15 hours of a layover, well, that person feels like your best friend because they remember, you know, oh yeah, you were talking about that. Oh yeah, your mom. Oh yeah, you're a writer. You were working on that book.
Yeah. And in fact, I've had that situation actually happen.
Well, I know mine.
To interject, I mean, I got stranded in Paris like 2 years ago. And one of the guys I got stranded with, he's like, oh, it's Bob. You know, he's emailing me. It's Bob. And I wrote a book and you promised you'd help me get it published. I was like, I did. You know, like a 15 million.
Buy me first.
Air France was handing out booze like it was booze. You know, like they were just like,
They
here,
were
you know,
French
like
and it was booze, yeah.
they knew they weren't flying, and they're like, here, you know, like, you know, whatever. And I was like, all right. And he sends me this thing, and it's like so bad. But he's such a great guy. But I was just like, look, you need a ghostwriter, but it's expensive. You know, it's like $50,000 or something like
Well, now
that.
AI could probably.
He could. So what did I say? I'm like, check out AI. Like they'll flesh it out for you or whatever. You know, and I don't know if he did or not, but anyway, that was observant. Like, yes, you can get stranded with people in an airport or you know or wherever, and suddenly like they're like your best friend.
And it has to do with like how much conversation that we've invested into this. And you know,
Right.
you know, for anybody who's read my work long term, like I am not a technophile at all. Like I waited till the last minute to get email outside of work that I wasn't made to.
Right.
I I mean, it's weird because I always seem to have that gadget that's on the cutting edge and I know what's coming,
Right.
but I'm not a futurist. I really would prefer everything was perfect in 96. Can we just freeze it there? Uh, like, and I know I'm an old lady, so you know I'm showing my age, but like I think that technology maxed out at the pager
At the pager, yes,
because I
yes,
can go out. If somebody had an emergency or really needed to get a hold of me, they could get a hold of me.
yep,
So
yep,
like I wasn't completely off the grid.
yep.
Someone could get a hold of me, but I wasn't like chained to this thing all the time.
Right, right. I had a pager for a while.
Yeah.
I
Everybody
did
did.
because I this was back when I worked for my dad, and he's like, everybody gets pagers now, and I was like, oh, all right, and like I think we used it once, and it was one of his secretaries called me to stop for donuts. So like I had to stop, go to a payphone, and she's like, "Can you pick up a dozen donuts?"
Well, I was a teenager at the time I got one, and my grandparents were
Right.
freaking out because they were certain I was a drug dealer. And I was like, and I was such a nerd. Like I'm on the mathlete team. I'm a mathlete. My husband says that's not a real thing. It was like we competed with math. I was on
Right.
the chess team and I was on the debate team. Okay. I wasn't getting in any trouble.
Right.
So like
You're
I'm
smart enough to be a dealer.
no, I don't have the luck for that. I always joke that I never tried illegal drugs because I would be the
Kristen
idiot
Lamb.
that bought it from a narc, or I'd be the
Right.
first time I tried cocaine to be the one with Drano in it. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, I'm
Right.
too square for that. So anyway,
I
I get
thought. Oh, sorry.
pager and it's short. My this pager, my grandparents were certain I was dealing drugs, and I'm like, you realize how many times I've got to be downtown at the library to write all
Right.
these cases, or I'm on the road because I'm going to compete. You can actually get a hold of me. And once they realized they kind of had a leash, they were like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Right. Right.
I was like, you actually can keep better tabs on me now with a pager than without
Right.
one.
Right. Hey Howard, look at this. You can actually call this thing. Yeah. We now we know she's all time.
But they were futurists. I mean, they were great generations. So, you know, they
Yeah.
were all for the flying cities and the robot help.
Well, look how much changed. I mean, like, you know, assuming your grandparents are what, probably in their 70s or 80s now or something like that.
Oh no, they're passed away now. They'd be close to
Uh,
100. They're a great
oh, all
generation.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, look at how much changed. You know, like, oh my God.
Well, my grandfather started out on a farm in East Texas having to hook up mules and horses to go into town
Oh, I bet. I bet.
to
Yeah, he probably had like a 6 shooter and all that stuff.
well, everybody in Texas has a gun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's nothing.
We don't
Hang
really
on one
want a
second. I gotta
six-shooter
keep
'cause you gotta bring down a hog, you need more than 6.
right. Keep talking. I just grabbing my water.
Yeah, sure. So, it's one of those things that I joke about, you know, never wonder. And I remember seeing The Matrix in the '90s, and I was sitting there thinking, you know, how did these
99.
people go from living their best life to they're a battery in the Matrix?
Right.
And after all the crazy crap we've been through in the last 5 years,
Yep.
if someone said, "You know what, Kristen, we're gonna put you in this pod and you get to be young and hot and in 1995
Right.
when the world was sane, and you just
Right.
gotta be a battery," I'd be like, "Yeah, sign me up."
Yeah, that's why the guy's like, he's like, look at the steak. It's like juicy. It's whatever. Like, you know, I want to go back. I want to
Yeah,
go back to the I don't want to be I want to be in the matrix. I don't want to be human again. I
I
liked it better
I've
the
thought
other way.
about I haven't blogged in a couple months because I'm trying to balance school, but I was like, blue pill guy never gets enough attention because we always hear about people getting red pilled, and
Right,
we're like, do you realize how strong the blue pill is?
right.
I mean, the power of the blue pill is very, very strong.
That's right.
But so a long way around answering your question. So I'm hoping I've usually kind of been ahead of the curve on where AI or where technology is going. Like I knew the dot coms were gonna implode. I was like, this is not sustainable.
There was a lot of it coming out.
I
Yeah,
predicted Web 2.0. I said, look, you're gonna have to have user generated content because Web 1.0, you had to have a webmaster. If you wanted to change anything on your website, you had to wait till your webmaster was out of rehab and hopefully he could fix it. It cost thousands. It was cost prohibitive. It was clunky. There
right,
was more user generated stuff starting to come up. And I'm like, that's Web 2.0 is user generated content.
right.
And then as I think when you met me early in my writing career, I'm like, this stuff's going to evolve. They're coming out with algorithms. Then it was self-evolving algorithms. And
Yep.
so I always was kind of way far on the predictive edge of where publishing and everything was going to go.
Right,
And even in 2013, 2014, I basically said what is going to happen is Barnes and Noble is not going to listen. New York is
right,
not going to listen. They're going to be too tied to their bookstore. They're over bloated, and what's going to end up happening is Barnes and Noble is no longer going to be publicly traded, and it's going to be sold off for the most valuable thing it has, which is its debt.
right.
Amazon is going to take over all of the publishing. There'll be other little places out there trying to compete, but they're really not going to compete
No,
against Zon.
no.
New York publishing's really not going to be relevant much anymore. And by 2020, I said we're going to be in a pretty good desert that I don't know where things are going to go. Because when it goes, it's going to go and it's going to be big and it's going to be. And I said, I think Web 3.0 or arguably Web 4.0 is AI.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I've been using it as a tool. So is Troy Lambert, and like
Yep.
we're creating little covers, and we're using it for social media purposes. We're using it for writing prompts. If we get stuck, we download the file and like, where would you go with this right now, Gronk?
That's what I love.
Yeah, like, well, you got a few options. It's great so far. They always tell you it's great so far. Like and and sometimes I'll take the advice, and sometimes I won't. But just to like get unstuck, you know what I mean? But I mean, and that's different from writer's block. And I always end up usually going my way anyway. Um, but it's terrific if you embrace it as a tool. If you're not like, oh, I refuse to use this or whatever, crazy,
Well,
like
it's gonna present there's gonna be pluses and minuses to it, just like there
like
was a
anything else.
there
Yeah,
was a plus. Think of the laptop that we're on right now and how much capability I have with a laptop as opposed to using an old typewriter.
right.
But to be blunt, and sorry if I'm hurting any feelings out there, you'll get thicker skin, is I think the writing was better because you didn't have as many chance to cut to well, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to move it and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to redo it and I'm going to swipe all this, I'm going to put it in another file, I'm going to try it a different way. You
Right.
really had to commit, and the writing had to be better because it was a son of a bitch to type on a typewriter.
It was. I've done it. I've written a novel on a typewriter, and it's like right down to the physicality of it.
Oh, and you and I are old enough to remember we all had one professor that wanted all that shit justified.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
And so, did it offer new advantages when we got the laptop? Yes. But a lot of more people decided, yes, I can become a writer because I have natural command of my native language. Therefore, I can write Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And then of course, when Amazon came along and gave such a low threshold to publishing, you just end up with this massive glut. So where
Right.
I hope I'm seeing AI going is AI is going to be the answer to what I've been screaming about since I started this. Is I said discoverability was going to be your nightmare.
Which it's become. Yeah.
And
Um,
I know, when I ask my AI, what does my writing voice remind you of? And of course, it tells me all the really good authors that I like. But in a way, I think that the AI is very accurate because I do read a tremendous amount of these authors. So I could see why their essence would be in my writing.
right.
Like, it's
Sure.
even how I would sell
Sure.
it. I'd be like, if you like Gillian Flynn, you'll like my stuff. If you
Right.
like Cormac McCarty, you're gonna like my stuff. My stuff
Yeah,
is
that's
not
what I do.
light and fluffy and hallmarky.
Right.
It's cartels and guts and blood, and I mean, it's deeper than that,
Yep.
but it's
Yep.
very great. My mom was really funny. Um, I was reading her one of something I was working on, and she's like, "Kristen, do you think people are gonna think you're a man?" And it's just because I love writing through male characters, and I love gritty stuff. I love dark. I love noir. I
Right.
like it
Yeah.
violent because I like it real.
Sure.
But it was just funny because someone was like, "You don't write like a woman."
Yeah. My mother she'll read like some of my psychological suspense,
Mm,
slash horror. And
mhm.
she'll be like, I had to put it down. I had to put it down. I can't. She's like, I'm afraid you really like that. Like you really are like the type of person who's going to cut a head off and boil it and eat it. You
Well,
know?
what's funny is my last book, that I did with Troy Lambert, it was the short stories, "What the Hell Did I Just Read?"
Yeah.
That
Good.
title came from my mom. 'Cause I gave her one of my stories, and she's like, "I loved it, but what the hell did I just read?"
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Parents can be brutally honest with your work. It's funny.
And I was like,
And then sometimes they're like I used to give my mother everything, like that. And I learned to stop because she's like, I didn't like that one. I didn't like this one. I didn't like that one. I'm like, all right, you know what? When your mother's like bashing you, to your face, if it's, but she's like, that one I liked, made me laugh and all. And I'm like, okay. So like, I kind of know what she's going to like and what she's not going to like,
yeah. Well, it's funny because, a million years ago when I was a baby writer, of course, we all write our first novel, and mine is now
Throw it
being
out.
Guantanamo Bay to break terrorists. They're like, "Although you were the bomb, it's just not another chapter of that book."
Right.
And when I speak, I joke about it because, this is in the early O's when number one, you didn't get a lot of information of exactly how long a novel was supposed to be. You know,
Right.
you didn't get the craft stuff that we really take for granted today.
Right.
And you had to guess at a lot of things. I also did not realize that there were a lot of people who were self-published writing books on how to write or how to be published, but because I was such a newbie, I couldn't spot that it was self-published.
Right.
So they
Right.
would give just horrible, horrible, horrible advice.
Sure.
Like, "You need to add more detail to the scene." No, you don't. People
No.
aren't that stupid.
No.
And so long way around, that, I wrote my first novel, and I just kept writing, and finally I'm like, "Well, it's 187,000 words. That's long enough at the end."
Yeah, it's like 4 novels. Yeah.
And of course, God bless my family, they read it. And I tease my mom because she's one of the few that was honest with me. She's like, "What kind of author do you want to be?"
Right.
And
Right.
I always add to the end of that, I always go published or unpublished. She's like, "I didn't say that." And what it was is that I was reading so much stuff. I was reading everything from like a category romance to the Green Mile.
Right.
So it was like all these,
You
it was,
got all that in there.
you're learning, you're being a kid and you're playing with different things. So I had, you know, like everybody's first book, it isn't any genre, it's all genres.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
appeal to everyone.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm rereading the Martian Chronicles right now. I'm a really slow reader, but I haven't read the Martian Chronicles since it was on my summer reading list in 1979.
Oh, wow.
I loved it. I was 14. Was I 14? Anyway, um, and I'm rereading it now, and it's like a brand new book,
Mhm.
um, and definitely a greater appreciation for it. But other than the language, um, I can't really apply anything to what I'm doing right now, other than maybe some short stories, because I love to write I'm like you, like my novels are like gritty noir, hard boiled stuff.
Mhm.
And my latest standalone is in fact a cartel book,
Mhm.
which Big New York hates, by the way. Like it's a
I
no,
love it.
you know. Um, but in any case, but I like writing those Twilight Zone-ish
Yeah.
short stories. I have so much fun with that stuff.
Well,
So
and that's what the hell
throw a
did
little Ray
I
Bradbury
read
in there.
is we didn't have any gore. A lot of it was like unreliable narrator.
Yeah,
I can't believe I've been rooting for this person. It was a lot of messing with it, more Hitchcockian.
right.
So when I say I write horror, I mean, I'm trying to be honest, like I write horror, but it is, they think like slasher flick, summer
Right,
camp body parts. They don't think, no, more like Alfred Hitchcock.
right, right. What was Hitchcock's big thing? The MacGuffin.
Yeah, he loves MacGuffins.
Yeah, and that was like he set somebody up like like that's the guy who did it or whatever, but it was always somebody you
Well,
wouldn't
that's
have
not a
expected.
MacGuffin, that's a red herring.
Oh, that's the red herring. All right, I'm confusing it, but he did
He
love
did like
MacGuffins.
MacGuffins
What's
that, like, they're always after the suitcase for whatever's in the suitcase, but they never tell you what's in the suitcase. It's the
Oh,
MacGuffin.
okay. All
Yeah.
right, all right, okay, all right. You know more about Hitch than I do. Although I have watched that Hitchcock movie several times. It's like I watch it once a year. I love it. I don't know why.
I haven't seen that. I just the my husband, when we first got married and he was trying to learn all the literary terms, everything we watch, he's like, "Oh, it's a MacGuffin." I'm like, "That's not a MacGuffin, honey. That's the red herring." The MacGuffin is never explained what it is. It's just like
Right.
it's whatever machine that's going to do whatever, and we never really know, or they're after a artifact, or and I'm like, "No, that's not a MacGuffin. That's a red herring."
Well, I've been
And
confusing it.
red herrings, facts you even fewer care about, and I'll butcher this too probably, but where it came from, I think it was in the Highlands of Scotland. It's how they train the hunting dogs.
Oh,
And red herring is apparently like really, really stinky. So they
okay.
would drag it along to try to get trails that the dogs would get off the actual track.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the
Interesting.
term red
Makes
herring
sense.
comes from, is it's a deliberate lead to get you off the real track.
Now that's very interesting.
But see, I'm the type of kid that grew up reading my dictionary for fun. So,
Oh, tonight it's the bees.
I know, right? I get to go see if it has a Latin or a Gaelic etymological
Oh
root.
my,
Yeah,
oh my God. Oh my God.
but yeah.
So AI, it's I actually lost my first gig to AI. For the first time, I lost a gig to AI.
Oh wow.
And when people were saying like, "Oh, it's never going to replace writers or writing or
Yeah, it
anything
is.
like that," I had one. I always keep one freelance gig, just for security and
Mhm.
for the extra money, for the steadier money, that type of thing. Something that doesn't take me more than an hour a day, but it's reliable, pays well, whatever. And I'm like, dude, you haven't been giving me any work. And he's like, I got to be honest, I'm using AI. My
Yeah.
clients love it. They don't mind. Writes a great blog. And he's like, sorry, like he's like, I got a couple of clients that are still insisting on the human touch, and I'll send them over to you. But even those have died out now. So because it's the difference between paying like however many hundreds of dollars for like almost he's probably charging almost nothing,
Yeah.
And so I officially lost my first gig to AI.
Yeah, I don't know where it's gonna go, especially because I don't see it going anywhere good, and I don't like saying that because I always like keeping people encouraged.
But
Uh,
it's you got to face facts. Um,
'Cause I think
this
what it's gonna do is it's going to, I think the taste of the audience is gonna change, and I hope I'm proven wrong on this. What has happened is since the turn of the 21st century, we started getting into reality television. We broke the fourth wall. So
right.
that's why social media was organic, was because we were used to reality television where we were in these people's lives and we wanted to know them. That's why all of the books, if you look from the O's on first person, you almost never saw books in first person, let alone close first. And yet that was huge
No,
for
publishers didn't want that. They wanted third person
yeah, they wanted third
or
person. Once you
omniscient.
started
Yeah,
getting into the reality TV style, more and more social media, they wanted first, close first. And I also remember when I first started out as in the early O's, they would have told you you can't do more than one first person POV. Yeah, you can if you're a good writer.
yeah, sure.
But what happens is that the audience tastes change as the technology changes. Like if you look back into the books of in the 1800s and the 19th century, well, yeah, they were like a gazillion pages long because writers got paid by the word, so they were padding that freshman term paper. Uh,
Yeah,
also, books were very expensive.
yep,
So I mean,
and
I even remember just being in the 80s going down to a B. Dalton, and a big factor on whether I would buy a book or not is how damn big it was. Because
sure.
I wanted my $10 or $20 or whatever to go as far as humanly possible.
Right,
And
right.
then you get into more of the social media where things are shorter and shorter. you're closer in the perspective. But what I'm seeing, and I could be wrong, is there's an egocentrism to the audience. And they want to see stories in their world. So I give
Right.
you, for instance, my son Spawn is 15 years old and he draws anime, but he's using AI because he's got these anime characters in his mind and he can literally have a live story that's feeding him his own world of imagination. And I'm like,
Yep.
well, uh, how much are we going to lose for basically if someone could create an AI book that's almost maybe they take our stock characters and it's choose your own adventure, but with them putting themselves in it.
Sure. Yeah. It, I see what you're saying. Like,
Because
why
that's the
even have the writer? I mean, I
attraction.
can create my own story.
Well, think about because I'm a huge gamer. I'm big into first person shooters, and you get really attached to your characters. You know, even if you get the MMORPGs, the people getting in World of Warcraft, you know,
Right.
they got this character they spent 10 years building, or they play Gears of War, like my son, if we do Gears or Call of Duty, whatever. So you spent all this time customizing this character so you feel like you're in the story.
Is that how it works? You customize your own character? I have no idea. I don't game.
Yeah, I used to pick on Spawn when he was little because I taught him how to play Gears when he
Wait a
was.
minute. You named your son Spawn?
No, that's just what I call him online because they don't need to know his name. But yeah, that's been his nickname
All
since he
right,
was.
good. Like, I'm calling you Spawn. Like, okay.
It
Why does
actually
everybody make fun of me, mommy?
no, actually people love it when he used to go to a Christian private school when he was little in like
Yeah.
kindergarten or first grade, and the teachers just called him Spawn.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And we
I
were
love
at
it.
a Sprouts in like 2011, 2012, and this couple's across the room, and I'm pretty distinctive looking, but they didn't notice me. They're like, "Oh my god, it's Spawn!"
Oh my god.
So
Oh my
yeah,
god. That's
it was
hilarious. But
an internet personality from
tell
the
me
time.
more about where you think publishing's going then, and the future of writing, because I am of the opinion that, like, I mean, I'm 60 now. I'll be 61 in a month, like officially less than a month now. And I'm like, I'm glad I'm at that period of my life where, like, most of my books are written and you know, I have a base, I have an audience, and all that stuff. And I'm gonna write till I die, but I would not want my spawn, any of my spawn, to believe that they're going to be a novelist going forward. Because I think you can do that, of course, but, like, you should have another skill
I
too.
think we had a very brief time that if people would have been a bit less self-centered, writing could have taken a really good turn.
Yeah.
I think had New York gotten on the bandwagon earlier, that it was going digital instead of doing so much to defend paper,
Oh yeah.
because the paper model the my original degree is in political economy, and you have what's called an elastic good and an inelastic good. You know, an elastic good you can change the price on. If I come out with a semiconductor, I can charge whatever the hell I want. A new VR program, a new program for your computer, it's got a very elastic price. Whereas the problem with paper is I also worked in paper, industrial paper. Paper's heavy,
Right.
and that is always a product that's going to be tied to the price of oil.
And it's
What
expensive.
happens
Yeah.
is that they were filling these bookstores, and I'm like, you can only charge so much for a paper book before people go, screw it, I'm gonna get the digital.
Yep.
And they were so fixated on the paper hands-on experience
Right.
that I was like, but you're missing the fact that we just went through it was when I was really arguing with this was when, under Obama. I don't remember what happened. It was uh, the economy and a bunch of other stuff, but it was like $7, $8 a gallon for gas.
Right.
Because I remember it costing almost $90 to fill like my little crossover SUV thing. And I'm
Right.
like, you can't be trucking in books on a consignment model. They don't sell, and then you're trucking them because you're not going to make any profit. And then all your profits going to these, fancy offices in New York City that you don't need anymore because you can do
Right.
things virtually.
Right.
And, I think if they would have gotten on the ball quicker without trying to defend paper so much, Amazon, there was a window of opportunity where someone could have taken on Amazon and
Sure.
been really good competition, and
Yep.
they squandered it.
Yep.
And then Amazon took over, and it's just a free for all. So the future of it, I think it's going to be what the future always was. Is I think if you can build a personality for yourself online, and I think the future is very, very niche. Like,
Right.
you know that you write cozy mysteries for middle-aged women who like to crochet and like chocolate,
Right.
or you know you're
Right.
writing hard-boiled
Sure.
detective novels for middle-aged men who like jungle setting.
Absolutely. You're creating your own little ecosystem. You have your own little like 2 or 3 thousand dedicated fans. They like your product, and you're not the day of the. It's the same for music too. I would imagine the day of like you're just going to have this universal audience who are just going to make you this rich and famous author, probably over for the most part. You are, if you're lucky enough, you'll create your own little niche, your own little ecosystem, and you'll be able to make a nice little humble living there.
I don't know if it's over as much as I think that we had this really weird window where writers finally were making really good money, and it was a lot more democratic in the
Right.
early days of Kindle and the early
10
days
years
of
ago. Yeah.
when you and I met, it was becoming much more democratized. Like, good
Yep.
writers were actually being rewarded.
Right.
And then, it became that's when algorithms came on board, and I was like, "Oh, great. Now it's gonna be who can pay for the best algorithms, blah, 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 blah,
Right.
blah." And
Advertising. Yeah.
I think we've just gone back full circle back to that 96, 92% failure rate. Because I said 92, but it is closer, like 96, 98, because it's like 92% sell fewer than 1,000 books. Well,
Sure.
96% sell fewer than 500.
Right.
So we're still back to there's the 2 or 3% that are making all the money.
Right.
And
And
then
I'll
you
tell you something. My agent, you remember Chip, right? He retired. And so I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta find a new agent now, right? Like who at my age, like who wants to go through that? And several spoke with me, and I finally found one, but all of them were like, we don't give a shit how many books you've sold already, altogether or whatever. We don't care how many books you've published. We don't care who you've published with. We don't care about all those awards. We don't give a shit. How many books did you sell? Your last traditionally published book, how did it do? And like if it was a stinker, that's it. That's all. That's it.
traditionally published books don't sell that well.
No, and like that's it. Like next, like that's how desperate they've gotten. Like because I mean, I've got you've seen my page, like the quotes they can use, and like just the history. Everybody knows, but um, they don't care. They look at that spreadsheet and they're like, those numbers aren't great. See you.
Yeah, but they're
Well,
not even looking at the right numbers, because I wouldn't even look at a traditionally published book because they've had terrible distribution for going on 12 years
oh,
now.
and COVID just killed it.
And people physically aren't going to bookstores and buying books. They're going
Right,
and they're taking a picture of it on their phone and buying it on Amazon.
right, right. It's actually. I mean it's funny because every now and then someone will post a picture on social media like, look at it, it's my book in a bookstore,
Mhm.
and they're surprised. They're like, wow, there's one of my books in a bookstore, which will make me absolutely no money. Like even if somebody buys it, what I mean? It's like a freak of nature now, unless, but there are still some authors I know who are like they're setting up their book signings and going from state to state and losing money 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 and precious time. And I'm like, I don't even go to the conferences anymore. Now I'm like, I'd rather just write, like I've done it all, and and like I said, work with AI a little bit to help me, so long as it can help me until it takes over my job.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, because you do have people like me who are training them. Uh, I do think that you're gonna still need the human touch
I
there,
hope so,
and
but not for these nonfiction pieces or blogs or whatever. You don't need the human touch at all. It's based on information that's out there. If it puts out a decent sentence, a decent paragraph, a conclusion, you're all set to go, honey.
yeah, and I mean, I get a little bitter because I remember in the teens when you and I were kind of at our heyday, getting on to writers and going, you got to stop slapping up all this crap. You got to stop publishing all this crap. Because like,
Right.
if you
And
want,
they were.
if you want a freaking robot to be viable for a robot to take over your job, do a really bad job.
Do a really bad job. Yep.
And when I'm seeing writing samples out of AI that are just smoking the pants off of most regular writers.
Right. Yep.
But
you
yeah.
know, it's funny because I remember we worked with a few people who shouldn't have been publishing. Like it's like this stuff was so bad, and then slap a 99% price tag on it,
99 cent book rush.
and everybody would fill their Kindles with it, and the next thing you know, you're getting a $20,000 check.
Yeah.
That was so unsustainable at the time. But
it was unsustainable, but I think that there was a really good opportunity for someone to come in and make something out of that would have been sustainable.
Right.
That's why I had come up with the idea and nobody ever went with it, is I was like, instead of having James Patterson write a gazillion books with all these ghostwriters, why don't you do like Paris Hilton did in the O's? Like she came out with perfume lines and makeup. Now nobody thinks that Paris Hilton is a perfumier, but the name Paris Hilton sells.
That's
so
right.
What I kept
putting
in my blog suggesting to New York is I was like, why don't you go to these mega authors like Stephen King or James Patterson and come out with a line of books?
Right.
Like, here's the Stephen King Ghost Western line, and go pick writers that actually have a good book. They're new, that nobody knows.
Right.
You can run it by King. He uses his name. He gets a part of the royalties. And then this new writer gets elevated up where they have someone other than Stephen King to buy books from.
Right. Right. That's a great idea. Basically, it's a brand, like.
Yeah.
These guys are all aging out.
Well, yeah, George R.R. Martin can't write every single fantasy. So why couldn't you have a George R.R. Martin sword and sorcery line? Because it's almost doing the same exact thing as what AI does. Customers who like this also like this. Well, if I like George R.R. Martin, then if he's read a book and his agent's read it enough to put his name on it, I'm a little bit more confident choosing that than just some random fantasy that gets recommended.
Well, they're kind of doing it, but they're waiting until the author dies. There's still a Clive Cussler line of books. I think it's Sunrise, maybe.
Yeah, but they never
he had to die first.
Yeah, but they never make the new author's name that big. It's like,
no, it's like
you've still got Tom Clancy and Clive Cussler hitting the New York Times bestseller list, and they've been dead for years.
Yeah, Robert B. Parker.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, I mean, I know that I use my own personal AI because I did Grok, and then I was like falling in love with it because I got it trained where like you're speaking my language. And then somehow I ended up out of the page and I had to start all over again, where Grok sounds like a chat bot. And I'm like, I can't go through that again.
Right.
So, but yeah, I do like AI for helping me organize my thoughts, bouncing ideas. If I get like written myself in a corner, or maybe there's an obvious way out of it, but I'm like, well, the audience is going to guess this. Can you give me like 10 options?
Yeah. What about, 10 years from now, maybe less. It'll be not only AI, but it'll be like, all right, I have like, Linda, my robot, I'll be like, can you edit this for me right now? And
I don't know, because I think 10 years from now, I think that the technology is going to move more internal.
Meaning what?
I believe the next generations, like, how, we came over from, I think you're Gen X, you're close to. And it was like,
I'm right on the cusp.
You weren't going to be able to get a job unless you learned how to do a computer.
Right.
And I think what's going to happen is they're going to start doing more like your wearables are going to be more internal. Because like you're looking at the pioneering of Neuralink and all of that.
Oh, that's what I thought you were talking about.
Neuralink. So my kid's going to go up against a job with someone else, and this kid's got Google implanted in his head.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
He doesn't even have to use a device. He can just, put on his Google glasses and use his interface and look things up.
Right.
I don't think it's going anywhere good. I'm a bad person to ask for this, especially I guess if I'm going to make my bread and butter off of talking about AI. Like I'm trying to remain positive, but
I still want a robot though. I'm looking forward to that. I'm buying one as soon as I can.
I say that I pay for Amazon Prime so that when the machines finally do rise up, I'll get free shipping when they go to assimilate me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have like a really hot robot, you know. And I'm gonna be like, cook me a burger, Linda. I don't know why I'm calling her Linda. You know, like, will there be anything else, Mr. Zantry? No, go ahead and plug yourself in. You know,
Dude, yeah, I'll just take the one that helps me clean the house on top of all the other stuff that I got to do. Like, yeah, that'd be
yeah.
great. I don't need the AI that writes the books for
I
me.
want
I
one
need
who's
the AI that
right.
cleans the house so I can write the books.
I want one who's going to be especially complimentary. Like, you're looking hot today, Vincent. You know, like, thanks, Linda. I appreciate that.
Program it with whatever voice you want. I'll just have Pierce Brosnan on mine. Something with a Scottish accent.
Yeah. All the fun we're gonna have. All the fun we're gonna have. Yeah. What are you doing tonight? I'm staying home with Linda.
We'll be in the old folks home being taken care of by the robots, but our generation
We will.
to the robots. So
we absolutely will. Yeah. I mean, God willing, you know, like, you know, but I mean,
the problem with publishing and understanding where publishing is going to go is because you just have this industry that's so archaic.
It's so archaic, and it's still, I'm not getting political. I'm just getting real. It's still, they've doubled down on their woke leftyism. And now with AI and all that stuff, again, it's almost like George Orwell's 1984, when he's like, you can read books, but books are written by machines because the machines control the language. And a human being who writes a book it's like a suicide mission, because if you get caught, you know, it's a death sentence. And so,
well, actually, have you seen the Venn diagram where it's like Fahrenheit 451?
Yeah, we're getting
1984. You are here.
It's a lot of whoever, and we used to read those books in junior high or high school because, you know, that so that the teacher could say, like, now this is sort of happening in Russia and it's happening in China, but it will never happen here or in the Western world. And of course, what's happening, you know, like you posted something terrible online. It was not, you know, and it was something we didn't like. It was politically incorrect. So we're going to arrest you. In Germany, they're busting down doors like at 5 a.m. because of Twitter posts. You know, it's crazy what's happening now, and it's going to happen here too. I think we might have a little bit of a pause, but it's going to happen here, yeah, eventually. You know.
Yeah, I used to try to be careful, and now I'm like, I'm probably already on a list. Screw it.
Oh, me too. Yeah,
I'm going to go down swinging.
Yep.
And you know, I don't know. I think we definitely are at a crossroads. I don't know where that crossroads going to go. I was warning about it 10 years ago. I was like, guys, you got to quit doing, you know, I just feel like it's sort of like, sorry, I like words. My mom used to get really upset because the grocery stores were replacing the cashiers with the self-checkout.
Right.
And I said, I understand that you're upset and I understand that you want to use self-checkout, but the people who work at the grocery store have to take some responsibility. You can't keep hiring people that they show up, they get a uniform, they get all the training, they work a week, and then they no-show. Right. And then you're left without, I said, the behavior of your workers is creating the vacuum that's going to say replacing you with a machine makes sense.
Right.
And I was seeing that dangerously clear with a lot of the writing that was coming out, and the teens is like they were just vomiting out whatever they could just to get the
next fast as they could
book or the next post. And I'm like, but you're opening up that corridor for someone to go, I don't care if it's written by a robot, I want something readable.
Right.
And that makes sense.
Right.
Because the woke stuff's gotten completely out of control. Like, I mean, I am a huge fan of the badass female action hero, but not every action hero was meant to be Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor in T2 was a metaphor. She was a metaphor. She wasn't meant to be the mold that you put every single female action figure in for the next 30 years. You know, the heartless resting bitch face. And if anything, she was a very passionate character. She was a mom. Right. She did all of that to protect her son and to save the world she thought was in danger. She was very caring.
No, she was a very organic character that was perfect for the story.
And she was a metaphor in that in her focus for love, she unwittingly became the very thing that she was trying to stop.
Right.
And then for like the next 20 years, from Laura Croft to Salt on, it's just this humorless, resting bitch face, unlikable female. That you
Yep.
being a bitch doesn't make you a strong person.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
Uh,
every man in every movie is some doofus. It's a good thing that we got the woman there to explain everything to him. It's amazing he made it this far.
yeah. I started watching The Silo. You know, because I read Hugh Howey's book.
Oh, I didn't know Silo had come out. I knew
Yeah,
it.
it's actually I think in season. Watching season 2 right now.
Yeah, because I read
But
the book.
it's. I have to say I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but it's so pathetically woke that it's not fun to watch. And you know the hero is a female,
Of
and like
course,
every single couple is a mixed couple, and it's just
everybody's
come on.
gay.
Oh yeah. Oh, and absolutely. One of the subplots is one woman looking for her wife, and it's like this isn't real. You know, like
Well, like right now, because we always watch TV to wind down, and we've gone through so many
yeah.
series, and
I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying like it's just
well,
not my
I'm
cup of
going
tea.
to. I'm watching Stargate Atlantis because it's just good old science fiction
Good for
without
you. Yeah.
trying to lecture me about something.
Right. Right. Without
You know,
trying to make a point.
if you go look at the characters from Stargate Atlantis, they're already super diverse.
Yep.
Taylor is one of the main characters. She's black. She's from Tanzania.
Okay.
Ford
I've
is
never
another
seen it.
character. He's black. You know, so what I'm saying is you're looking at this cast before they were trying to,
To jam it down
and
your
you're like,
throat.
they're already super diverse. You've already got, you know, the white guy, the strong female, the strong black woman. You've
Right.
already got a super diverse character that it just nowadays it just feels forced. It's like, oh crap, we went too far. Did we check the box? Is somebody a lesbian yet? Instead of it's, you know, I mean, I grew up on Buffy. We intimated at we had lesbian relationships, but it just didn't, the whole fulcrum of the story wasn't around checking all of these boxes. Tell a good story first. And then
Right.
if those characters happen to fit, so be it.
Right. Right. Yep. And again, Hollywood's doubling down on this stuff because
And I don't know why, because they just keep losing
they're
billions,
losing money like
billions.
crazy. And you know, and I know of these writers that are just pulling their hair out, what's left of it, trying to write the perfect woke manuscript that's still they believe will capture, you know, like a genre audience or
But
whatever.
the
And
problem
it's
is that you
impossible.
can't, because at the heart of all of this woke stuff is a victim mentality.
Yeah.
And you can't make heroes out of victims.
No.
And one of the things, my son and I were talking about this because he likes anime and he wants to write stories that go with his anime. And, you know, I was talking about my frustration, especially being as a female, because it was nice growing up as Gen X where you started to see strong females, that they weren't all
Right.
tripping and breaking their ankle and clutching their pearls.
Right.
You did start seeing more proactivity, which was awesome. But then it's like we got into this world where every one of the females is overpowered
Right.
and they never have to earn anything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like even when Spider-Man gets bitten by the, you know, Peter Parker gets bitten by the radioactive spider, he isn't immediately awesome. You know,
Right.
his hand sticks to things. He doesn't need his glasses. He's clumsy. Luke Skywalker is given the most powerful weapon in the universe, and the first thing he does is point it at his face.
Right. Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah, like the Everman character.
And
Indiana Jones like gets
yeah,
jabbed by the German dude and he's down on the ground and like,
and he has a
all
fear
right.
of snakes, and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know he's human. And then you get these female characters that come along, and it's again more of the resting bitch face,
Yeah.
and they're humorless as a hemorrhoid,
Yep.
and they never have to actually earn it. I
Right.
mean, that's why I gave up on the Star Wars French
Oh,
fries, like that
the
franchise,
Star Wars French fries. Yes, I gave up on it too. So did many people.
because Ray was, she had no personality, nothing really redeeming about her.
Yeah.
She had an androgynous name, an androgynous look. The minute that she picks up, it gets in a lot, which I know she had the staff thing, but she fights someone I'm supposed to take seriously as a villain
Right.
for the first time and holds her own.
Right.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah. All the more reason for us just to create our own little niche, our own little ecosystem, and sell to people who appreciate our characters and want to read them, and that's the future, I think.
And I think maybe even franchising off your books, because like I know like my series has Romy, and it has certain characters that are standard. Because I do feel like not everybody's my son that has this imagination to build his own AI world with his own story, but I could see it being like a first-person shooter game where you could go into the world of Kristen Lamb's Romy Loughlin series or your whatever series, and I can pick this character and do a choose your own adventure.
Sure. Yep. I actually did that with. Do you remember Ben Sobiek? I think he published a couple of books with Stonegate back in that day.
No.
But he wrote 2 books in the Chase Baker world, and I like produced them or whatever, and he did a good job. I mean, he's onto other things now. He became like an entrepreneur, but I was open to that, so I dabbled in it a little bit. And every 6 months I get a check, from him.
Well, that's nice. I mean, I still think we're kind of in this phase where we've got all this new stuff that we don't know what it's going to do.
Right.
Like there's, you and I can probably talk in another 6 weeks or another 8 weeks and be like, there's this, so that's why we're predicting, I used to dedicate probably at least a third of my blogs to the publishing industry, but just bitching about traditional not getting the hint that we were no longer in a brick and mortar world.
Right.
You can only write so much stuff about that.
Right. And they still keep insisting that like, no, everybody's reading paper again and the bookstores are back and whatever. It's nonsense, of course, but 85% of all book sales still remain and these are the ones that they keep track of are still ebooks.
Well, and even then, great that the bookstore's back and the paper's back, so Stephen King can sell more books.
Right. So
I mean, most of those little bookstores, the whole front end's going to be, if your name doesn't rhyme with King or George R. R. Martin or J.K. Rowling, forget about it.
Child, yeah.
It's going to be the same ones they know are going to sell.
Yeah.
It's going to be their home court.
I'd love to talk again in 6 to 8 weeks. That is if Ukraine, why the whole Ukraine blowing up half of Russia is not on the front page of every paper.
Zelensky is trying to get us in World War III, man.
He is. I mean, like we are on the verge of Armageddon, and people don't know it, or they don't care, or because the media is like, yes, we need less people anyway, so let's go for it. Let's have a small nuclear exchange. Let's do it.
It's bonkers.
We are closer than we've ever been. Unbelievable. But
what's next? As a Gen Xer thinking that we were, I mean, that's why.
We grew up with that, right?
Because we grew up. We're the Red Dawn generation.
Yes, absolutely. I love that movie.
And
What's next for you besides school?
I just work in school and homeschooling, and I finish in October. They don't start doing any type of job placement until like halfway through. But like I said, I don't know what I wanted to use this for. I just knew that I had a technical background. It kind of was always my edge in writing. And I'm like, this AI ML thing, I think this is the next phase. I really should understand more of it and how it works and what's good about it, what's bad about it. I'm really trying to find good, but I'm finding myself in the same position I was with social media, that I can see the good, but I can also see that it's a genie that we're never going to get back in the bottle.
No. Yeah. No, it's that toothpaste not going back into
TGI. And there's good with AI, but I just see it's a genie that's not going to get back in the bottle because, and this from, sorry if I'm insulting anyone, but when Grammarly and spell check and all that stuff came out, people's writing skills went in the tank. You got grown adult people that have college degrees that can't. That's why they're using AI to write a letter, because all of those tools made them weak at writing.
Sure.
And I just feel like, have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah, I watched a bit of it. Yeah.
Like the guy is like, I don't know.
It made me anxious. It didn't make me laugh. It made me actually anxious.
He's sitting there and like the whole the number one rated show is like them kicking each other in the nuts. And I'm like,
they're in the hospital room or the emergency room, like press A for like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you still got people like us that were like, and we love the Cormac McCarthy and the Larry McMurtry, and then you get someone over here going, dude, punch my balls. That's kind of the pace to where it's going.
I I try to just, when I'm on social media, just try to post and go to get away from it. But you can't help look, getting caught up in a stream on Instagram. And there's this one stream where it's this poor, grossly overweight African American woman who's got a pile of food in front of her, and she's just slowly eating it. And she's like, today I'm eating 2 Big Macs. No, she's like, today I got 5 guys. And it's
I've seen
like
it.
one of them's like 4 patties, and the other one's like 2, and then the next one is like a fisherman, a fillet of fish,
Yeah.
but like she buys like 8 of them and stack. And I'm like, it was so grotesque and so pathetically stupid. And you can just see people like, well, I'm not going to read right now. I'm going to fucking binge watch these absolutely moronic Instagram videos. And it's like, what happens to us as a species when that shit's happening? Like
Idiocracy.
Wow. Idiocracy. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think it's going to bifurcate, actually, though it's always been a Pareto principle, 80-20. Because I think you're going to get your 20% that they're going to want stuff that's remnant of what we got in the 60s, the Frank Herbert days.
Okay.
They're going to want super detailed, layered, crafted. And then you're going to have your 80% that's happy to watch someone eat themselves to death.
Yeah.
But that's kind of always been it. I mean, you and I are writers, and we know that's always been the struggle to sell books is why marketing doesn't sell books usually is because marketing is used to sell a product that somebody was already going to buy.
Right.
So it works on people who read books.
Right.
But if you've only got 6 to 8% of the population who regularly reads books,
because it takes an effort. Yeah.
You've got 92% of the population that you not only have to convince to buy your book, but to convince them they like reading.
Right.
And that's a bigger ask.
It is, and that'll only get worse as time goes on and things are done.
I don't know if we could get rid of some of this woke stuff. I could see a lot of us writing for the small channels for television. The stuff that they're producing.
I hope so.
They're trying to get around all this woke stuff because you can't write a good story with all the woke stuff. You can't.
You can't. Yeah, that's why I'm kind of excited with this new agent because she's into that type of thing. But we'll have to see where it goes. Well, Kristen, this has been wonderful. Like an hour and 10 minutes have gone by. Like that as always. Don't stay so far away from me this time.
I know, right?
We have to get you on at least once every 2 months or so.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I was hoping to once a month, and then you weren't feeling well, and then you traveled, and then my life went,
Last year was a clusterfuck. I stopped podcasting for I would come on occasionally, but it would be like I'm in the doctor's office all afternoon, and the last thing I want to do is I didn't stop my life, but it was tougher.
Yeah, I feel bad because I haven't blogged anything since February.
Right.
But I'm having to do these massive AI ML projects plus.
Yeah, I'd say you're pretty busy. I think you're pretty busy, so I will let you go. Everybody, you just heard from Kristen Lamb, the beautiful Kristen Lamb.
Thank you.
And
I'm glowing like I'm in the 60s because my ring light, its battery ran out.
So you are like, oh,
I look like a 60s album.
Yeah, you do sort of. Yeah, it's like, all right, I love it.
My
all
ring
right,
light's getting old. I the whole time we're sitting here talking, I'm watching it dim. And so I put that on and I look like I should have a guitar.
It looks like, it's like a Carole King album from 1970.
Yeah, Carole King.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. What does she sing again? Well, it's too late, babe. Was that her? Yeah. I don't know. My sister had the album. That's all I remember.
There's worse things I could look like. This would be fine.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's Tapestry was the name of the album.
Yeah, but it's kind of got that glow.
It does. It's coming down.
I got the hippie hair.
Yeah, it looks great. I love it. So bring the guitar next time.
I know, right? Well, actually, I have one in the background. I don't know if you can see it.
Here we go. Is there anything you don't do? I see it. Yep. All right, Kristen, I will talk to you soon.
Later, Gator.
All right, everybody else. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.